In Laboratory Reddit, today's story is...
While we were celebrating the news of my pregnancy with his family, my husband said, "I want to name our baby after my late ex-wife." When I asked if he was joking, he confessed that he believes our baby is his ex reincarnated just because the due date coincides with her birthday. I'm going through a really strange situation, and I don't know what to do. I'm almost 2 months pregnant, and until recently, my husband, 34, and I, 30, were happy about it. We got married about a year ago after being in a relationship for 3 years. Before meeting me, he was married to his late wife for 2 years until she passed away in a tragic car accident. They got married right after college following 4 years of dating. But at 26, he was already a widower. He didn't maintain any serious relationship with anyone until he met me. I've always known about his ex and her passing. He usually remembers her fondly, something I completely respect. She was his first love, and I understand that what happened was very tragic. However, my respect doesn't mean that I'm going to allow him to name our first child in honor of her, which is exactly what he wants. And the most disconcerting thing is that his family seems to support him in this. A few days ago, his parents came to visit, and his mother asked if we had started thinking about names for the baby. I told her no, because we didn't even know the sex yet, and it was too early, but my husband intervened, saying that yes, he had thought about naming it after his ex-wife. When I mentioned that we didn't even know if it would be a girl, he replied that we could use a male variant of the same name. I was disturbed to discover that he had given so much thought to this idea, and although I considered addressing it later in private, the matter was too important to wait. I asked him if he was serious, and he confirmed that he was, further revealing that he believes this baby is the reincarnation of his ex. His only proof is that the expected due date coincides with his late wife's birthday month. He's basing all this craziness on that, and I find it extremely disturbing that he has considered this without discussing it with me before. I flatly rejected the idea, explaining that I found it strange and uncomfortable, and that this was also my baby. But he started arguing with me, and to my surprise, his family took his side. The situation quickly got out of control. We were yelling at each other while his family tried to calm us down, but he accused me of being hypersensitive, jealous, and insecure for not wanting to pay tribute to his ex. His family, while supposedly trying to calm us down, kept suggesting that I was overreacting and that my hormones were making me react disproportionately. I felt deeply offended, and after a while, I exploded. I told them I couldn't continue with this conversation, went to the bedroom, packed some things, and left for my parents' house. They tried to stop me, claiming I was being too emotional, but I didn't care. I needed to get away from that situation. During these days, I've been staying with my parents, who are completely on my side. I've been arguing with my husband and trying to get him to understand my point of view, but he refuses to give in and keeps trying to convince me. I'm really confused. Am I being too emotional? Am I the one who's wrong for refusing to name my first child after his late wife? Update 1. Thank you so much to everyone for your valuable comments. They mean a lot to me. After reflecting, I decided to go back home to talk to my husband in private, without his family backing him up. I thought it would be easier to reach him if it was just the two of us, and it was time to have a face-to-face conversation instead of continuing to argue over the phone and messages. 6 days had passed since I left, and yesterday afternoon I returned to see him. Despite me taking the initiative, he received me with unusual coldness, something completely atypical of him. This hurt me deeply, because I'm going to be the mother of his child, and I couldn't believe he was acting like this, especially when I have valid reasons to reject his proposal. But since I was there, I decided to get this over with once and for all. I explained, as calmly as possible, how uncomfortable his idea made me feel. I told him that I didn't find it a moving gesture like the rest of his family did, but rather something disturbing for both of us, and that's why I didn't think it was appropriate. Basically, I repeated everything I had told him through messages and calls, but in person, hoping for a different reaction. However, his response was even more vehement this time. He firmly opposed my refusal and began to insist that either we name the baby after his ex or he saw no future for us. It seemed crazy to me that after so much time together and expecting our first child, he would choose to break our marriage over something like this. I tried to reason with him, telling him he was being absurd and that he would regret it later, but he insisted that he was completely serious. He didn't want to continue with me if I couldn't understand his feelings about this, and he confessed that he had feared exactly this reaction from me, which is why he hadn't mentioned it before. He explained that his ex meant a lot to him and that he considered the coincidence of the birth month as a, quote, sign from the universe. He tried to minimize his request, as if he was asking me for something insignificant, but in reality what he was asking was complete madness. After a while, I felt we were going in circles, and I ended up collapsing on the sofa next to him, not knowing what else to tell him to make him come to his senses. I regretted having gone to talk to him, because he clearly wasn't willing to listen to me. He was so attached to his beliefs that nothing else seemed to matter to him, however absurd they were. I couldn't understand how he was willing to risk our marriage over this, after everything we had been through together. Honestly, I thought he was losing his mind, because I could find no other explanation for his behavior. When I started crying, his attitude changed. Until that moment, his tone had been different. He wasn't shouting like the other day, but he was speaking loudly enough to intimidate me. However, upon seeing me cry, he began to speak softly, as he used to do, and told me that he was sorry for having become so obsessed with this issue, but that it was really important to him, and he needed me to understand. He confessed that he had been thinking about this since he calculated the probable due date and simply couldn't ignore what he considered a sign. According to him, it would be disrespectful to his ex's memory, and although he assured me that he had gotten over her loss, he admitted that he still loved her, which did not contradict the love he felt for me and our future child. All he was asking was for me to at least consider his request instead of rejecting it outright. When he seemed to be more reasonable, I asked him if he would really consider divorce over this issue, as he had suggested earlier. He thought for a few seconds in silence, not looking at me, but finally looked at me and confirmed that yes, he was serious. In his opinion, if I rejected this, it was like refusing to understand him as a person, and he couldn't live with that. He wanted a wife who understood him at all levels and respected his opinions, and if I couldn't do that, maybe it was better that we weren't married. I was in shock. Before, I could think that he was saying all this in an altered state, but when he expressed it so calmly and with apparent rationality, it was hard to believe he wasn't serious. At that moment, I understood that he was very serious, and that there was nothing else I could tell him. It was tremendously disappointing, but after hearing him talk as if it were something completely normal, I decided to leave because it no longer made sense to keep wasting my time and energy on him. When I returned to my parents' house and told them what had happened, they were stunned that he was actually considering divorce over something like this. They offered to talk to him themselves, but I told them not to bother, as he probably wouldn't be kind to them, and besides, this was a matter between him and me. Right now, I have no idea what to do. It's a completely absurd situation, and I can't imagine why he's acting this way. During all this time, I've always been respectful of his previous relationship, because, from what I've heard, she was a wonderful person. I respect that, and I'm happy for what they experienced, but that doesn't mean I should give in on something as important as our child's name. I'm not insecure or jealous of her. I simply don't think it's appropriate for him to name his child after someone he was married to, and as a mother, I should also have a say in this decision. If this is a turning point for him, so be it. I don't care anymore, especially after what happened last night. I don't even think he's thinking clearly at this moment. Update 2. It's been 3 days since I last saw my husband. Many in the comments have advised me to file for divorce and start preparing a custody agreement. But honestly, I haven't had the energy to do so. I know I should, but emotionally and physically I'm exhausted. I've been crying every moment I'm awake, except at work, although even there my colleagues have noticed that I'm not behaving as usual. The truth is that I'm not ready to let him go. I don't want to get divorced. I really want our marriage to work because I love him deeply. I miss him, and I can't believe he's doing this to me. I'm furious with him, of course, but I still can't accept the idea of ending our marriage, and I don't understand how he could say it so easily the other day. Just a few weeks ago, we were happily planning the baby's room, and now we're contemplating divorce. I don't understand how we got to this point. I feel like I'm losing my mind, and the fact that I can't really talk to anyone about this doesn't help either. I can only express myself freely when I post here, which is a relief, but it's not the same as talking to someone close. I can't talk to my parents because every time I mention it, they get so indignant on my behalf that, although I understand and appreciate their reaction, they keep insisting that I either need to make him see reason or talk to a lawyer to end this once and for all. They're right, but right now I don't want advice. I just need to vent. As for my friends, I haven't been able to talk to them either because it's too personal. I tried to mention it to my best friend, but I just couldn't. So I've been suffering in silence, and it's been horrible. I haven't even heard from my husband since I left, which makes me think that maybe he's already given up on us, and I'm the only one who is still clinging to the relationship. I feel like a fool, but I can't help it. I don't want my child to grow up in a divided home, but right now I don't see any other alternative. Update 3. It's been a week and a half since my last post. As I hadn't heard from my husband in a while, I decided to follow my parents' advice. They had already talked to a divorce lawyer for me. We just had to file the petition, and so we did. A couple of days ago, they served him with the divorce papers. He finally sent me a message that day asking if I was serious and if I had thought it through. I didn't know what to say to him at first, but then he called me and I answered. He didn't seem too upset, and he asked me the same question again, very politely. I told him that this didn't make me happy at all, that I was devastated, but given his behavior, I didn't see any other way out. Clearly he wasn't happy, and if the only way to make him happy was to accept the name he wanted for our child, I was very sorry, but I couldn't do it. He continued talking in that same dispassionate tone, being very courteous, which irritated me because he seemed to be treating all this as a mere inconvenience. He told me that he would give me a couple of days to reconsider, and that I could still stop the proceedings if I changed my mind about what he was asking. But if in the next 5 days I didn't, he would sign the papers because clearly we didn't understand each other as well as we thought. Due to his indifferent tone, I ended up yelling at him, asking if all this was a joke to him, because I didn't understand why he was acting as if it wasn't important. He replied that of course it was important to him too, and that he had expected me to try to talk to him again, to change my mind. But since I had decided not to, he saw no point in losing his temper with me, because, obviously, I didn't care about him. He added that he wasn't really asking for much, just the freedom to name his first child, and if I couldn't even give him that, I obviously had to question our marriage. He was still using that strange tone, and I didn't know what else to say to him, so I hung up without adding anything else. I cried for several minutes before receiving another message from him, a long paragraph blaming me for everything, for being too stubborn, insecure, and jealous. He said he was very disappointed that things had reached this point, and that he couldn't believe it, because not long ago we were celebrating the arrival of our first child, and now, thanks to my stubbornness and refusal to understand simple emotions, we were about to separate. He claimed to be very disappointed in me, and that he had now begun to question our entire marriage. His words were extremely offensive because I always tried to be a good wife. No matter how much he talked about his ex or how much he praised her, I never let that affect me. I never felt insecure or jealous. On the contrary, I always found it moving how he honored her memory. But now, looking back, maybe I was too naive and didn't realize that perhaps he wasn't just remembering her fondly, but was still in love with her and I was just a replacement. I'm not saying that's really the case, because most of the time I felt he sincerely loved me, but now I'm not so sure. Thinking about it, he talked about his ex too often, but I never considered it abnormal. I guess it was my mistake not to realize sooner what was going on. In his message, he completely ignored that he was the one who suggested divorce first. I just took the next step. He wants it to be my fault, so fine, it's my fault, but I no longer feel guilty about it. I'm sick of him and this marriage. I can't stay unhappy for the rest of my pregnancy, letting him ruin this experience. I'm determined to make the best of it, so I blocked him. Although it will be very difficult for me, I'm determined to move on. He can stay trapped in the past if he wants, but I won't. I want to move forward with my life, so I'm done, and if he thinks all this is my fault, go ahead. I don't care anymore. Update 4. It's been a couple of weeks since my last post. I've been busy with the divorce and all the paperwork. The process is underway and is relatively straightforward since he's not contesting anything. We expect it to be finalized in a few months or as soon as possible. But that's not what I wanted to talk about today, but rather about my in-laws. I hadn't spoken to them since our first argument, when everything started, so I was quite surprised to receive their call yesterday. After thinking about it for a while, I decided to answer out of curiosity about what they would have to say. When I answered, both my mother-in-law and father-in-law apologized to me for everything that had happened, which surprised me a lot because the last time they had supported their son. They explained that they were sorry for taking his side that day, but they knew he gets very sensitive when it comes to his ex-wife. They didn't want to go against him, so they backed him up, something they now acknowledge was wrong. They should have defended what was logical and reasonable. They told me that they had tried to convince him over the past few weeks without success. They hadn't contacted me before because they were embarrassed for not having defended what was right that day. They also revealed that my husband never really got over his ex's death, which confirms my suspicion that he might still be in love with her, and I will never be enough. Talking to his parents only reaffirmed that I had made the right decision. I don't have the strength to be with a man who is still in love with someone who is no longer here, nor do I want to have to compete with the memory of another woman. If I have to fight for him, it's probably better to walk away. I accepted their apologies because, honestly, there wasn't much to do about it anymore. The damage was done, he had gone too far, and our marriage was over. Those were the facts, and no one could change them. Update 5. Hello everyone. It's been a couple of months since my last update, and, indeed, I'm now divorced. I'm in an advanced stage of pregnancy, and, at least in that aspect, everything is going well. Emotionally, it has been very difficult, but fortunately, I have the unconditional support of my parents and friends. I finally told my friends everything that happened, since I couldn't hide a divorce, and they have all made sure that I'm okay, something I deeply appreciate. I finally learned the sex of the baby. It's a girl, and I couldn't be happier. My ex-husband attends some checkups with me, and we have agreed to put our differences aside to raise our baby together in the future. We are formal and cordial with each other, although everything is too recent for me to feel comfortable. However, for the sake of my daughter, I know that I will have to make an effort, so I accept it. We have sold the house where we lived, and, as far as I know, he has moved back into his old apartment, where he lived with his ex-wife. I guess my suspicions weren't so wrong after all. It hurts, but I'll get over it. I'll be fine.